love it or hate it, you cannot deny it. Vechain is a beast of a project. It is the king when it comes to supply chain, tracking and authentication. It's been used by many different industries around the world, everything from the pharmaceutical industry through to the apparel industry and of course even the alcohol industry for authentication. It's used to track and trace and to keep track of everything that is going on within the life cycle of a product. And it is the #1 go-to blockchain for businesses globally. This is definitely something that you do not want to sleep on. In this video, we're going to be diving down into the data of Vechain, taking a look at the price action and what we would expect to happen over the course of the next several months. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. And if you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, the link is in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Vechain. So Vechain has a two-token system, a dual token system. Basically, we have Vechain or VET, and we have V4. And V4 is the gas token. We don't really talk too much about V4 on the channel because V4 can be manipulated by Vechain to keep the cost base of transactions at the same level. Basically, this means that the price of V4 used on transactions can go up or can go down depending on the price of V4. This is designed so that businesses globally have a steady cost base for their operations. So we don't tend to talk about the price action of V4, and we don't really invest in V4 either. Instead, we tend to invest in the VET token, and this is the currency of the actual blockchain. So VET is really where our priority lies, and we're going to dive down into the data for this. In front of us here, we have VET paired up with USDT on the monthly chart, and Binance is our data source. Now with this, there is a limited amount of view of data here, and it goes back to as far as July 2018. Now, I'm not really going to be talking too much about the history of VET here, but we are going to be talking a little bit around the resistance levels and the levels that we might be revisiting soon in the price action of VET. Okay, so we're going to start with this this monthly chart before going down into the weekly and the daily. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to acknowledge where we are at the moment. We can see that we're coming into this little kind of area just here where we had this local low in June. Now, if I come over to this area of September 2018 and put a horizontal line on there, you can see that basically this was an area that was resistance up here in September of 2018. And we can go ahead and we can check to see that actually in June of 2022, this same area has been revisited. But this is also an area where we found we couldn't push through here in July of 2020, August of 2020, and we even struggled to do it in December of 2020. So this is a key area for Vechain, as we can see this area here being a big key area of resistance for us. Okay, so now we know that we've got this area of support at the moment. What would happen if we were to lose this area? So if we were to come down and we were to come down into a new lower low in 2022 here, lower than this 1.992 cent low at the moment, then essentially where are we going to go? Where are we going to head to? Where's the next kind of key area on this monthly chart of support for us? And that's what we're going to have to take a look at. So as we kind of think about this, there's a couple of key areas that I think are worth noting. And we have this one just here, for example, and we can see this one coming in at 1.1 cent. This is also an area that was of resistance here up in July of 2019, and also was resistance here in June of 2020. Okay, we also found that this tried to turn it into a bit of support all around here over in September of 2020 and over here in December of 2020. So this is going to be an interesting key area for us at 1.1 cent. Okay, so that's the next level that we might revisit if we were to lose this area of 1.9. That's basically a 50% drop, which is pretty steep. There is obviously one other additional area that's probably worth kind of noting just a little bit, and it actually kind of comes in right somewhere around here. It's not so easy to see this on the monthly chart, but as we go down to the lower time frames, you'll definitely be able to scope out something within this range. And it's basically a bit of a gap that was left around this kind of 1.3 to 1.4 cent, and we'll revisit that soon. So basically, if we were to kind of come down lower than 1.1 cent, which is always possible, where would that next level be? And for me, really, that kind of comes in right around here, specifically this one. Okay, this basically is 0.00624. And the reason for this is not only was this an area of support over here in June of 2019, it was heavy resistance all over here where we were failing to close above this level. That was November of 2019, December of 2019, January 2020, February 2020, March 2020, and of course, April and May of 2020 as well. These were key areas for us. We were battling this 0.00624 zone for quite a period of time, and it was only really in June of 2020 that we were able to kind of push our way through it. So this is going to be a key area for us. If we were to retrace quite dramatically in the price action of Vechain, I think this is the lowest that we're probably going to see. No guarantee that we actually do drop down there, but it was worth noting nonetheless. So let's now moved on down just into our weekly time frame. Okay, so now we have those kind of key areas kind of mapped out on the monthly. What about our weekly chart? What I'm going to do is I'm going to just take these levels down into the weekly view as well. Okay, I'm just going to mark these up. So this way we can keep good track of where these sit as we kind of move down these time frames. Okay, I'm going to grab this last one and we're just going to move this over into our weekly time frame. Okay, so as we come down to the weekly, these are the key areas that we've already mapped down. Now within here we can see that there's obviously going to be several key areas as well on this journey, and as I was saying, about that 1.4 cent or so, we can see that there's an area here, and it actually comes back as far as this range of October 2018. If I can go ahead and just find the exact candle, I think it's this one, or might be around this one here. And basically this one comes in at 1.401. And what you can do is you can see that this is an area, let me just grab hold of this, right, was resistance up here in October of 2018, and it was support over here in July 2020. Okay, it was also a support line just over here, and we wicked down lower, we found that additional support and moved back up here. Okay, but we can see that this was an area of support at about 1.4 cent. So we know that this is an interesting point of reference, and we should potentially keep an eye on this one as well. It kind of sits between our 1.992 and our 1.1 cent range, so it's somewhere in that middle there. Okay, so from our weekly standpoint, it's very, very interesting to kind of review. But let's now take a look at the current positions. We have got our all-time high right at the top here, okay? This comes in at 27.983 cent, okay? So that's just short of 28 cent there. And we can see that we broke down and we've had an overlapping structure. This basically tells us that we are tracking in a corrective pattern rather than a trend-based pattern. But we should also just reference the fact that we have had a potential move to some additional volatility. Okay, so I'm just going to move this fib over here. Now you can see that this has come down to this area of 1.992 cent range, right? And it's a little bit north of our 1.382 fib levels. At 1.228 down here, okay, this would basically be the 1.618. This would trigger this entire structure that's currently corrective to become a trend. And if we were to hit this 1.228, then essentially we are probably going to be talking about dropping down quite significantly lower than 1 cent at that point. And this will be because we'll basically be trending in a 5-wave pattern. This would basically look something like this. 1, 2, come down here for a wave 3, up for a wave 4, then down into a wave 5. Okay, so we'd have to be very cautious about that. Now, I'm not sure that's going to happen or not going to happen at this point. It's too soon to really know. But one of the things I would be very cautious on is to see whether that does play out. Now, essentially, when it comes to our wave 1, it's not a clean-cut 5-wave drop or anything like that. So I don't think that's really something that's going to be something that actually plays out, but it's something that's worth noting and keeping in the back of our heads as we talk about the price action here of Vechain. So as we kind of expand this area here and we can start to review what this structure might look like, we can see that we have some pretty clear 3-wave drops. So if I take this one up here, for example, and move this over to this area just here, we can see that our area that we bounced from at 1.992 is just a little bit north of our 1-to-1 ratio at 1.859. And if I go ahead and just mark mark that with an ABC, you can see here it's A, B, and C to the downside over here. Okay, now I'm going to make that yellow so it stands out just a fraction more. There we go. And so you can kind of see that completed that structure. However, this was actually tracking as a potential 5-wave structure that got invalidated down here. And as a result of that, we have started to enter into a slightly different structure as well. I'm going to leave that 3-wave pattern there for a second and start to talk about what's going on down this side. You might be inclined to think that maybe we're moving up in a stronger way and that we should potentially start thinking about a strong move to the upside after completing this structure. Of course, we are looking at this as a macro 1, 2, and 3, as in a B, C structure, C wave containing 3 waves in itself. However, this structure down at the bottom here is also quite alarming, and it's alarming for the obvious reasons of the momentum that sits behind our wave B up here is very similar to the momentum that sits behind this recent structure this side as well. So these two things are very, very similar in how they actually operate. And if I bring the stochastic RSI up here, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. When we were up at this B wave high was also when we were up in this overbought area on our weekly stochastic RSI. Now, when we actually came down to this low point, we were in the oversold area, in the same way that we were when we got down to the bottom of our A wave here. Then we moved up into this overbought area, and we moved up into this overbought area right here without actually doing too much price appreciation. And then we start to move back down. We've got to revisit this oversold area, and basically that's looking like a new lower low to me. And so we are going to be pretty cautious about what's going on here on the weekly time frame, because essentially it doesn't look overly great for the kind of understanding that the bottom is in, right? That narrative doesn't quite fit with what we're seeing in terms of the data. So this means that this 3-wave drop here may not actually be finished. And one of the things that we should be quite cautious on is whether or not this has actually got to move down in 3 waves of our C wave in itself. And if that is the case, then we're going to go and take the measurement of this low to this B wave high, move this over to our bounce that's coming up here, and then all of a sudden we can see this low point down here at 0.00760. Now, do you guys remember that key area for us, which was this one up here? Move this over to here, the 1.618 coming down here at 1.226. That area would then get hit under this scenario. So if we are to see an extension in here of A, B, and C like this, it would hit this trigger point where we actually are trending to the downside. Okay, so the key things that are going on within these areas for Vechain, we should be pretty cautious with them because they're not exactly giving us a bullish indication. Instead, they're looking quite bearish in their structures. So ultimately, we are looking for corrections. We are looking for new lower lows, but ideally we don't want it to come down lower than 1.226 because that would actually mean a more bearish situation where we could start talking about that support level at 0.00624, or more specifically this 1-to-1 ratio at 0.00760. Okay, so there's a few things here on our weekly chart that do give us kind of cause for concern with the price action of VET and of Vechain. However, I do go back to the initial kind of thoughts and the opening to this video, and that is that there is no one better when it comes to supply chain. It is the #1 blockchain for businesses around the world. And if we were to see Vechain drop down to these prices of 0.007, or even just anything less than 1 cent, to me that seems like a very good deal. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Super interested to know what you're thinking in terms of Vechain, in terms of the fundamentals, and obviously their move from the supply chain aspect through to NFTs and DeFi, the VUSD, and generally their move over into the European regions and trying to break into the US as well. From a global standpoint, I think Vechain is positioned incredibly well for some good long-term gains, but do have to see this correction through first. We cannot kind of assume that the market is buoyant and moving up in a bull market when the world is also in very bearish times. I think essentially we are looking for decent corrections, we are looking for new lower lows, and we are looking for really nice accumulation zones ahead of the next bull run to the upside. And for Vechain, I do think that's going to be somewhere lower than 1 cent. But hopefully we'll stay above that 1.226 and we'll prevent ourselves from trending too far down. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you found it useful and informative, hit the like button, I appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Guys, until the next one, have a fantastic day.